Welcome to episode 123 of Sport SA Daily Diary. This week we're focusing on African stars going to the Olympics, and first up is Namibian rower Maike Diekmann. Good afternoon, Maike. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm really excited to speak to you guys and share my story.
Very much for joining us. It's certainly an honor, and you're the first of our African athletes that we're going to be chatting to.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think it's really nice to get as many people's stories out there as possible, especially now in lockdown, how everybody's coping with it. So I'm really excited to be speaking on my behalf here.
Maike, you are from Namibia. You are the first Namibian to qualify for the Olympics in rowing. And we're going to get onto that. I'm not even going to try and pronounce the name of the town where you're from because I'll just make a complete fool of myself. But tell us a bit about yourself growing up. Obviously, there was no rowing boats and lakes and dams or anything. So you're a lot more into the horse riding and the motorbiking and the mountain climbing and the African nature.
Yeah, so I grew up in Namibia on a farm close to the town called Otjiwarongo. That's where I went to school, and so I finished school there. I did all 12 years of school there. But I grew up on the farm, so I was a weekly boarder. I went home on weekends to the farm, which was really great. And during the week I was in boarding school, so from grade 1. So it was pretty much, first grade, go to boarding school. A lot of parents thought, okay, that's a bit crazy. But I think for me, it was really fun because I got to spend a lot of time with my friends and stuff. But I was also very excited to be home on weekends and be on the farm. So the farm, I think I was really, looking back now, I'm really fortunate to have grown up on a farm, especially when I speak to a lot of people here from Joburg and Pretoria. And then I realized, wow, okay, I've had a really special childhood growing up in nature. Lots of space, my horses, my pets, my dogs, my cats and stuff. And I just think, I don't know, I think Namibia just has something very special. I miss it a lot. Now being in South Africa, I do miss Namibia a lot. But growing up, I was always very active. I was always an active child. I think I tried a lot of different sports at school. We in Namibia, unfortunately, don't have rowing. So for me to have followed this path is quite bizarre. I think a lot of people from home and my friends that know me from school, they never thought I would end up rowing for Namibia. I didn't know that myself. I didn't even know the sport really. I knew the sport existed, but it was never on my mind. We didn't have any water-related sports that much where I grew up because it's just such a dry place. And we just had normal sports like netball and field hockey and soccer and stuff like that, and rugby, of course. But for me at school, I joined, so I did athletics a lot. I did athletics from a young age on into high school. I really enjoyed athletics, and then it just got I think, too boring in certain ways. I wanted to try more of a team sport. And then I actually joined, Namibia has this weird thing. South Africans don't really know about it. I don't know why it's become so big in Namibia, but we have a sport called inline hockey. It's basically like ice hockey, but you play it on roller skates, but you have exactly the same equipment as ice hockey, but you have a puck as well, so you don't play with a ball like field hockey. It's like a puck. So we have that in Namibia. It's quite big. It's very bizarre. I don't know why it started being so big there, but each town, most of the bigger towns have a team, and I joined the team from Otjiwarongo, and I played. My brother actually started it. Then I thought, okay, my younger brother, I thought this looks pretty cool. Lots of action, lots of it's quite an intense sport, but it's also got a lot of skills, and that was quite the thing that drew me towards the inline hockey. And I started that, and I did that in high school, and I really enjoyed it. I actually went and represented Namibia for inline hockey overseas in America, in California at the World Championships. It is a very small sport, so there weren't that many teams, but it was really exciting to go overseas for Namibia for that. And I was there for the ladies open team, so that was really exciting. I was very young, so I think I just finished school when I went 2012, 2013. So I did that, and so those were my two big sports at school. I think is athletics, and then I did the inline hockey. So it was very different. when I started, when I got into rowing, I actually only got into rowing at university. So that's where my rowing path only took off.
And we'll get to your rowing, and I want to get back to that at inline hockey as well. But going to boarding school from sort of the age of 6, I mean, that's young, huh? To sort of be away from your mum and dad for the first time. Do you feel that's helped you grow up a lot quicker and sort of become a lot more independent and strong-willed, and has that helped you in your sporting career?
I definitely would say it did. I think going to boarding school at such a young age, it's not easy. I had a lot of friends around me that they were crying for weeks in the beginning because they weren't able to just, you know, leave your parents and stay in boarding school for a week. For me, it was, I don't know, I felt it was easier for me. I just learned to be independent early on, which I think definitely helped me later on in life, and especially also then later moving to university in South Africa, also far away from home, not going home maybe twice a year, maybe once a year only. So I think going to boarding school early on has definitely built me into like becoming a more independent person, and also coping with being far away from your parents and stuff, and just learning how to do things yourself and just getting on with it really much. Yeah. So it wasn't as tough as I think some parents would think. I think for me, my personality, I'm very much an independent person. Which also becomes a bad thing sometimes, because then you don't want to ask for help. You think you can do everything yourself. So for me, it was pretty much easier because I don't know, I think I've always been quite independent. I like just to do stuff myself and get things done. So that's pretty much how my personality just goes down that way. And I think that was much easier for me to cope with going to boarding school.
I mean, hats off to you, because that's pretty incredible. To your inline hockey, there can't be too many people that have represented Namibia in 2 different disciplines, firstly. And tell us, what was it like representing your country for the first time?
Yeah, I think I don't think there's a lot of people who've done that, and I think that's really cool. I actually haven't thought about it like this. Now that you say it, I've actually made me realize now, okay, that's pretty cool. But yeah, representing your country is very special. It's like such a great honor to actually go somewhere on a world stage representing your own, especially Namibia, which is so small as well. I think I always feel so proud going overseas amongst all these big nations that have so many people that they can choose to put into their national team. It's so much easier. And for Namibia, we don't really have that much of a selection. I think it's always nice to go overseas and have the Namibian flag flying high, and just seeing that you're one of the only athletes that's presenting, and it's a special thing.
And Maike, I mean, we've chatted to a couple of sportsmen and women that have been offered the opportunity to represent another country. I'm sure offers have come across your door in terms of probably representing South Africa or other countries. Has it ever been something that would cross your mind, or are you fiercely sort of protective of Namibia and it's your home and that's where it is?
Yes, so I think for me, I would definitely be able to row for South Africa because I've spent quite a time now here. But I've always, every time someone brings that thought up, or my friends are like, oh, why don't you just swap and go to represent South Africa? I always think no. I've always said to myself, I will never ever change representing my own country. I always say I will always be Namibian and represent Namibia. I just think it's so special, especially for me now with rowing. I just think I can help maybe build the sport a bit bigger in Namibia because it's so small and I'm the only one really representing there. So I think for me to represent Namibia in especially rowing, it's such a big opportunity to help grow the sport, develop the sport at home, maybe get more of the younger kids involved and people to look up to me. So I really think there's a big responsibility that comes with it as well, but I'm also very excited, and I'm really excited to be in Tokyo next year to be the first Namibian rower. So I think I will never change to any other country. I'm very proud to be Namibian and I love that country.
Good. I'm glad to hear that, because I mean, I said to Roland Skuman when he was offered to switch, how do you actually get on a podium and hear the national anthem of another country? You can't.
No, definitely not.
Maike, you went off to Rhodes, where you studied and qualified geology. but you started rowing in your third year at Rhodes. I mean, that's incredibly late. Of the rowers that we've chatted to so far on the show, a lot of them started in stand 6. Now you are starting third year at uni and you are flying. What made you get into rowing?
Yeah, so I think it's very late. I must admit, it's very late if you see if all the other people have started at school. So for me, it was actually quite a long story. I'll start at the beginning. So I went to Rhodes firstly, which was a very bizarre option for me from where I came, because people from my school in the area, they all chose to go to Stellenbosch or Tux, UCT. No one really had Rhodes on their mind. I actually didn't even know about Rhodes. It wasn't a big thing at our school. And I somehow had a friend and said, he said he was at Rhodes, and he said, don't you want to have a look at it? And that's how I somehow got into Rhodes, which is firstly so bizarre because it's quite different. It's Namibians don't choose Rhodes that much. I've met very few Namibians at Rhodes, so it was really quite an experience to go there. Mainly for me, I also chose it because I knew it was quite an English university, because my home language is German, and I did do English at school and everything was in English, but I just felt like it would be really great to go to Rhodes and become better at English as well, and be surrounded by mostly English people, because back home it was mostly Afrikaans and I was a bit over Afrikaans, I must say. So I was like, no, I'm definitely not going to Stellenbosch because that is just Afrikaans. And then sorry for everybody out there who's gone to Stellenbosch. I know there's also English people, but yeah, I think Rhodes, for me, the first year at Rhodes, I was in race as well. So I went to race for 2 years, which is quite long, but I felt like I didn't know anyone. So I really needed to make friends, and the race was the best option. And joining a sport club as well was the next option. So I was really excited to see what they had on offer. Every year, Rhodes has like a sports expo kind of, where every sport has a stand, and you walk around the hall and you can walk past the stands, and they kind of sell the sport to you and really want to get as many members signed up as possible, especially if you're first year and you walk through there, you're so overwhelmed. You just want to sign up to everything, and they just take your money, and you have two weeks, I think, to deregister, so you get your money back. So sometimes people just forget. So this is what people do. They like get very excited. They go in, they sign up for everything. This looks super cool. So for me, in first year, I walked through there. I walked past the rowing stand. I remember it clearly, and I just thought, oh no, like this looks very intense. This looks very difficult. And I also thought, the first thought that came to me was like, I didn't do this at school, and I've always thought maybe with rowing you have to do it at school to really be good. I can't be picking up this so late. So I just passed the stand, and I really didn't give it any much more thoughts to it. And then I actually signed up with the hockey team. And because at school, actually, I played for one season, I played goalie for field hockey, which is so bizarre. I don't know why. I think they needed a person and they needed a goalie, and then they said, okay, we'll put you in the goal. So in my matric year, I actually played goalie for the field hockey team. And then I was at Rhodes, and I thought, wow, cool, let's do that. I know that. So I signed up for that. I was part of like the lowest team. I think we were the 4th or the 5th team. So, and all the girls who were on my team were basically just there because it was a big jolt. So everybody just wanted to go out, have a good time. So we lost almost every game. And for me, that was like, okay, I could take it in the beginning, but then I don't know. I was like, no, I can't do this. I really want to win something. Because I think for me, I just always had something in like my personality. I'm very competitive, and I like to win. And so I did that for my whole first year. Then my second year came around, and I walked past the rowing stand again, and they tried to convince me. They said, oh yeah, we remember you from last year, but you didn't want to sign up. And then I said, but I don't know, I'm very unsure. I was very intrigued. And then they said, well, let's just write down your number, and then we'll see. So I gave them myself a number, and I actually never thought it was nothing serious. So I just went on, and then that year I actually signed up for the kite surfing and sailing club. And then I don't know why, it seemed so cool. And for coming from Namibia, where such a water sports are not a real thing, and I was like, this is very exciting. So I thought, cool, let's give it a try. Maybe it will be fun. And so I met made a few friends there, and it was really fun. And we went out because Grahamstown is so close to the beach, so we went out to the lagoons a lot. And I actually picked up kite surfing kind of decently on the lagoon, so it was really fun. And we did some awesome trips down to Cape Town to pretend like we're sailing, but it wasn't. It was also just a big jolt. So towards the end of that year, I just realized, no, this is fun, but I'm missing something. I really felt like something was missing and I lacked some competitiveness in my life. And that's when I decided, no, I need to find something else that's actually going to drive me to push myself a bit more. And then at that time, actually, it was around September, the perfect timing. The women's captain from the rowing team that year, she had still my number from the beginning of the year. And she actually phoned me and said, listen, we have the boat race coming up, which is the big race in Port Alfred every year, all the universities take part. And we want to put together a fun crew. So they have always this novice crew. A bunch of people have no idea how to row or like pretty shit at it. And then they just get put in a boat and you just have to go. So she said, don't you want to hop in the boat? Well, we need some extra girls. So I said, okay, I guess I have never rowed, but I can try. So that's how I actually got into the boat for the first time, literally 2 days before the race. And it's just a short race and it's against one other crew. So it was really chilled. But for me, it was like, oh my word, it's so exciting. I've never done this. And most people in that boat didn't know anything about rowing. We were just going up and down the slide, bumping into each other's backs, not following each other. It was chaos. But we won the race. We beat the other crew, which was amazing. We crossed the finish line and we were all like so excited and that adrenaline. And I think in that moment, I knew, okay, this is pretty cool. I didn't know what I was doing now, but this feeling of just, winning and pushing yourself, I really missed that. And what happened after the race, I got off the water, and in that moment, the coach at that time, Chris Holiday, he actually came up to me. I've never met him, and he said to me, well, Michael, you seem very, you look like you have a natural talent, and you seem like you have the body to be a rower. You're quite tall, and I think we should, you should consider. And he was very encouraging. He said you should consider going further in the sport, maybe, come to a few sessions, and we'll see what we can do. So that was really, I think that was a really important part of my rowing career, that point where I think a coach just came up to me and said, listen, there could be potential. And I think that was really important. And I think looking back at it, Chris really had a big impact on my rowing in the beginning phase of my rowing stage. So then what happened is he really went out of his way to organize some girls to put in a double with me so I could feel it out and see what it feels like to row. And then he said, you know what, for you to get better, you have to come to next year's January training camp. This was always a big thing in the beginning of the year. They had before everybody else came back from holiday, the rowers were back a whole month before varsity started. So everybody's still on holiday. And here we are coming back to Grahamstown, trying to train now for a whole month while everybody's still having a nice chill time at home. So that was really weird for me, because I didn't really know that many people in the rowing club. But Chris, the coach, said to me, you know what, you arrive in Jan camp and we will be able to teach you all the basics of rowing, and you'll be a whole step ahead of the other novices. So I took that jump and I said, cool, okay, I'll arrive in January. And I left early from Namibia and I went there. And yeah, that camp actually was really vital, I think, for my sculling, for my rowing career, because what happened is they put me straight into the scull, which is pretty much a boat that, if you're new, it's so hard to get around it because it's no balance, it's just you. So whatever you do and you mess up, you could fall in the water easily. So they put me in the scull straight away, and I think that was really important. I think that's why I picked up rowing pretty fast, is because I just had to learn quickly. There was no one that could stabilize the boat for me. So for me, it was all about, okay, I need to learn the basics now and stuff. But it took me very long, I think for a month at least. I just fell in every session. I don't know. I just did something funny all the time. I think I just, when the human instinct just panics when something goes wrong and you just let go. Some people like grab things, but I let go. And when you let your blades go, that's the worst thing you can do as a rower, because then basically the balance is off. There you go, and there you go, and you flip. So that's what I did for almost a month, I think. And I just thought to myself, I don't know, like, will I ever get this sport? Like, how's this going to work? And my mom even said, like, we can't understand how you've actually made it this far, because in the beginning you were you're not very patient. And I also said to myself, why did I not give up after a month with this sport? Because I'm actually very impatient. When I don't get something right, I'll just move on. But with rowing, it was something else. I don't know what it was in the sport, but I think it was just knowing that I have a possibility of actually being good at it, and I think people actually believing in me, and I just kept going And then eventually through that year, I started getting better, and I was racing now in the very low division university races in South Africa, because I was now a beginner, the novice division. It's normally the CD division. But I was winning all the races because I just had so much more time in the boat than most people had. They'd only started 2 weeks before racing. So that was really cool. And I think going through that year, my coach I actually don't know what really happened, but to represent Namibia for the first time was basically 10 months after I started rowing, because that was in Tunisia in 2015. Yeah, so I don't know how it came about, but I think someone from home found out that I was Namibian and I was at Rhodes and I was rowing, and there was like some connection with my coach. And then he said, well, why don't we send Maike and see how she goes at the at the African champs in Tunisia. So that was my first experience, and it was scary because now I'd just rowed for 10 months and I was representing Namibia really.
And I want to get back to that. But what was your folks' reaction when you told them that you've taken up rowing? I mean, had they even heard of the sport, essentially?
Well, I think my parents, yeah, they definitely have heard somewhere about the sport, but they were very, yeah, they were like, okay, Maike, this is interesting, we'll support you. They were always very supportive from the beginning, which was awesome. I've been very lucky. But I think even to this day now, I think my mom is really trying to, you know, throw herself into this rowing and really learn a lot about it, and you understand, because it's so different from where they come from. But my dad, he's been always supportive, but I think there's still days sometimes where my dad just wonders what I actually do. Like, yes, you row in the water, but yeah, I think the understanding of the sport and the whole concept of it, it's quite, it's different to what people know in Namibia. So it is quite interesting to see people back home, you know, commenting on my whole journey and stuff. And a lot of them are so supportive, but I think a lot of them don't actually even know what it takes to do this actually. So it's quite interesting, yeah.
And as you said, you went to the Africa Champs in Tunisia in 2015. You won the B final, which is essentially the second six.
Yeah.
So you weren't in the top six, but you were the second six, which you've been running for 10 months. Incredible achievement to be in the top 10 in Africa within a few months. And you narrowly missed out on the Rio Olympics.
Yeah.
The feeling of that missing out on that Olympics spur you on to kind of where you've got to now?
I think going there, I had no idea where I would land up and stuff. But then by finishing in the B final at the top and realizing that the Olympic dream is actually not that far away, and I could make it in the next cycle, I think that was definitely a motivational boost. And I knew in that moment in Tunisia, I want to continue this sport. It wasn't just something I took up at university. I think I knew I wanted to put I go back home and I wanted to put as much effort and work into this to see that I can make it next time. Because I think being there and racing, I remember racing Miles McKean Thornycroft from Zimbabwe. She actually went on to do really well at the Rio Games. We're actually good friends now, and she's been such a mentor in my rowing career. And I remember lining up next to her, and it was so scary because I was just this new person, so new everything, and she was this big, you know, African rower. And I think it was so scary. But looking back now, it was all meant to be the way it was. I think the way I was there and the way I lost and didn't make it into A final and then the B final, I think everything just came together because I knew that I had to go back, and I was so much more motivated, wanting to do better than what I'd done there. And a lot of people said to me, but Maike, you've only rowed for 10 months, you know, there's so much more. And I just realized, wow, okay. And rowing is a sport where it's just hours and hours, like a lot of sports, but with rowing, I think you can have the natural talent and be good at something, but with rowing, you just put so many hours into this, especially because it's so technically as well. You have to get all the technical things right. It's not just about, well, get in a boat, just pull hard and you win. It's just so many little things that you have to get right. And I think that's what really motivated me, is because I knew there were so many girls I was racing who'd done this for 10 years or more. But I think for me, I knew if I put as many hours in or more than most of those girls, I can make up those years and I can get somewhere close to that. And I think that's what I've seen in the last 2 years. It's really, really paid off, that hard work and finding the right people to believe in me and stuff.
I mean, speaking of that hard work, you were obviously lucky enough to enjoy 2 years at Rhodes, as you know, it's the party university of South Africa. So you obviously had a great time in those first 2 years. But since then, you've obviously dedicated essentially the majority of your time to rowing. Um, is your life sort of rowing stop to stop? I mean, you wake up in the morning, you're probably training at 4 or 5. You know, you do what you do, and then you're training again in the afternoon. I mean, it must be quite a sort of dedication and thing to take on.
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, after I graduated with my honours at Rhodes, I actually was at this like point where I needed to decide what I was going to do, because I actually had an option of going to Germany to do my masters, because I'd applied for my masters and I'd received a place there and stuff. And I was at this point, and that was a very hard decision, because I really enjoyed my academics, and I really enjoyed studying, and I didn't know, I was actually planning on actually going to Germany, maybe finding a place there to row while I studied, but everything just seemed so difficult in a way of balancing it. And I knew I was a person who needed to give 100% towards something, and if I didn't do that with both things, I couldn't do it with both things. I knew I needed to make a decision. And that's when I decided I'm going to go 100% rowing. And luckily my family supported me, and I had also a scholarship on my side to do that. But yeah, so I decided that, and that's when I knew, okay, this is going to be a full-time job now. This is basically training 2-3 times a day, every day of the week, maybe Sunday off. But most of the time you basically waking up, and it's your job to actually work out, train, pitch up, do your sessions, and go home. So it is definitely a full-time job almost to be a rower, and I've been very fortunate to have had a scholarship to support me to do this, because this is another thing I think is for rowing or sports in general in Africa, and also across the world in certain places, but here especially, we just don't have people can't just do a sport and you know, make a living out of it. Most of it is because you have a passion towards it, and you really have a goal, and you want to make it to the Olympics, and you have to have the right kind of financial support, right family support and stuff. But for me, I was really lucky to have had both of that, and to continue and do this full-time thing. A lot of people I know of that wish they could have done this, or tried at least to make a national team, but because there's just not enough funding and money in it, just isn't, they aren't able to do it. So for me, with the scholarship that I received, was a really, really big thing to help me do this as a full-time job now.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Very blessed. And Maike, we're going to get onto some of your results shortly, but you've now represented Namibia for 2 disciplines, as we mentioned. Was the feeling different when you represented Namibia for the first time? And secondly, do you feel you have received the relevant recognition from Namibian sport, that you've taken on a sport that no one else in the country has, and you are sort of blowing the lights out?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Okay, so I think representing Namibia for the second time has been very different for me, because the sport is just so different, and it's quite much like an individual sport rather than the team sport that I have. And so it's all been very like individually based, and it's also sometimes hard, because you travel overseas onto your competitions, and I travel a lot with the South African guys, because it's easier to do it like that. But then also it's hard, because me and my coach, that's our team, and it's quite small, and sometimes you always feel like, oh, I wish there were more people, you know, more people of my country. So it's been a different feeling to be the only one, I think, to represent Namibia, but it's been also special in that way on its own, because it's incredible, because I always think when I line up at a World Champs, and they always have the flags flying along the course of each country represented there, and I see my Namibian flag, and I just think that flag is just flying there because of me, no one else but me. And that's really crazy to think, because there's like big teams like America and Canada and Australia, and they have like 40 athletes or whatever there, and then it's just me. So that's really cool, I think, to represent Namibia and be the only one at a competition. It's not always easy, especially when you see all the teams there, and they've got the team vibe, but it's nice. It's a different vibe that we have there. And I think what's been really nice is the African countries in general, they've really come together for rowing, especially now, because FISA, our International Rowing Federation, they've been really good with getting development camps going, get the rowing going in countries where rowing isn't that big. So they've been one of my biggest supporters, and I owe to them to be able to go to so many competitions, to send my coach with me and stuff, because they've just financially supported me a lot, and they've helped with the development of a lot of African countries. So the FISA has been really vital in this whole development of African rowing. And because of them, we've like created this bond, and it's really nice of all the African countries. So we like the little countries with only one person per country, and we always like come together and we stay at the same hotel. So it's really special. But yeah, recognition, I think, I don't know, in the beginning, Namibian sport is so small, and there's only a few always like star athletes that stand out, I think, in the country. And there's been a few that have been around for a long time now, and everybody knows them. But for me to be new and to come to this quite new and like already qualify, I think it was a big deal. I think a lot of people were like, wow, okay, I've done something great here, because firstly, I've done this mostly out of my own organizing things and getting things done, and, you know, finding a coach. And there was not a lot of support like that from Namibia, because I was in South Africa and I knew I could only pursue this goal here because the facilities unfortunately just aren't there in Namibia. So I think the Namibian Olympic Committee, they've always been very proud of me. Now they always speak very highly of me, because I've gone the hard route. Like, it wasn't always just easy, and I think a lot of Namibian athletes go that way. It's always like a few obstacles, and, you know, then you don't have this and you have to organize that and stuff. But I think I definitely have received quite a bit of recognition now that I've qualified for Tokyo as well. I think that's like such a big thing. Like, everybody's like, okay, wow, because that's the main goal that a lot of athletes want to go to, is the Olympic Games, because that's the top of the top, you know. So I think since I qualified last year, October, there's been a lot of hype, I think, in the media and the newspaper and stuff, and people wanting to, you know, hear my story and share it. So that's been really nice, and I've been enjoying to be able to share where I've come from, and it wasn't easy. And I also want to make it, you know, make it a story to people who want to be somewhere one day, but, you know, they don't have the support, and things aren't looking that great. And I think I just want to show them that you can make it. You just need a few things right in place, and you just go and you just push on and keep training hard. So I think for me, that's been really nice to just try to be that role model for a lot of, especially girls in Namibia, to pursue their dreams for their sports.
You certainly are doing that, and you're flying the flag very high. Maike, we'll get to the Olympics, but before we do that, you've had some remarkable results. And as we've both said, I mean, you've only been in the sport for a couple of years. You won a bronze medal at a regatta in Italy. You won a silver medal at the African Champs in Tunisia. Has there been a moment to date, other than the Olympics, that's been the standout for you?
I think, well, the Pitalucca regatta in Italy, where I won my bronze, has been one of a big moment. I think that I will always remember in my rowing career, is because I think that was a big change, a big turning point for my mental side, because I went into that regatta. I knew I had good speed, or I'd been training well, and I had a good block of training, and I was really excited to see what my speed was like compared to the other top girls. Because the thing with the Pitalucca regatta is that it isn't like a organized world champs or World Cup, but a lot of the top European athletes, they choose to go there because it's a really high standard, and it's good racing. So I knew that the people I was going to race, they were really going to be fast. The girls were really going to be quick. So it was a good gauge to see where my speed was at. And I think to box with the top girls there and make a third spot and get a first spot and get bronze was really a confidence booster for me, because I just knew, okay, I'm actually part of the top now. I can actually box with these girls. Before, it was always like, can I or can't I? Like, I don't know. Like, I was always a bit, because I was so new to the sport, and I always looked around myself and saw these girls that had done, 10 years of rowing already. I always thought, wow, can I even, can I box with these girls at the top? Can I race them? And then winning that bronze and being so close to those top girls, just, wow, it was like a mind switch almost in my mind. I just knew, okay, this means that I actually, I've got the speed mentally. I'm able to, I'm able to push a bit harder now. And I had to completely set a new standard now because I went to Pitaluka and then I like got really good results in my times as well. So then that was a complete, like, it was exciting, but it was also scary because now I knew, okay, now the standard has been set high, so now I need to go and, challenge myself even more. But that was definitely standout regatta for me, and point in my rowing career is the Pitaluka regatta when I won my bronze. And then I think for me, the qualifiers in Tunisia last year, and then also the way it worked, we had the qualifiers first, so then there was a regatta on its own, and then a day later we had the African champs. It was weird, it was like separate, but it was basically the same competitors. That was really cool because, like you said, I won the silver medal. That was in 2017, I think. And what happened is I was actually leading most of that race, and I was with the Tunisian girl and I was leading, and I got into the last maybe 100 meters, and I don't know what happened. The water in Tunisia is known to be very rough, so you just know it's going to be bad, so you just prepared. But anyways, I got into the last meters. I think I got forearm cramps, which happens quite a bit for rowers, but it was just such a bad time, and it was right before the line, and then this girl went past me and she took the gold. So that was a really annoying part to swallow that, to be like, oh, okay, I could have had that. I could have been African champion in this, and now she's took it from me from like a few meters. So I think going back then last year to the qualifiers and then racing the African champs after, already knowing that I qualified for Tokyo was really cool, because now I could try and get that title that I couldn't get 2 years earlier. So that was really, really awesome. That was also a standout, definitely, to win the gold there.
And I mean, you mentioned racing against other girls and testing yourself against other girls. Do you think the fact that you did start quite a bit later, there's a positive in it, in terms of you still have probably a lot more ambition and passion for the sport than some of them who may have been in the sports in Standard 6, and it's not second nature, but they almost, it's getting burnout, essentially?
I think maybe yes or no. I think definitely an advantage. I always look back also for people around me here that have, like most people that I know from the rowing squad, from the cycling squad and stuff, they've rowed also since school years. And sometimes I always look at myself and I think, wow, I'm actually lucky, because to be honest, if I'd started school, I don't know if I would still be rowing now, because I almost feel like it's such an intense sport that it is hard to always, like you say, have that passion and have that spark and keep going and find that why you're doing it. And I think definitely with me starting a bit later, I think the passion is definitely quite big, and like to challenge myself and find more speed and stuff. I think though that the girls who are a bit older and who've been in this for quite a while, it's funny because sometimes those girls, there's a few of them from the women's single that in my field that I'm racing, they actually they're quite a bit older, so most of them are like in their 30s. Most of them actually have families already. So it's so weird actually to think how different everybody's life is, and each rower is like, the one is like, at university, the other one has 3 kids already, and we're all racing in the same field. And it's actually incredible to see some of these girls who are 35, 36, and they are literally at the top, and they have 2 kids already. And I think that's what's so special about rowing though, is I think that because you can do the sport till such a late age, I feel like a lot of these girls maybe had a break and decided family was first, and then decided to come back again. And a lot of the people also say that, women at that age they just peak in their endurance sport. So it's really exciting to actually see that. So I think definitely, yes, I would say being young, starting the sport a bit later, I would have quite a bit of passion. But I think seeing these older girls still going for it, there's definitely a few standout girls where I know, wow, it's just incredible. Because, I think sometimes they have everything so balanced in their life. It's really nice. I think they have their family, so they go back from rowing and they have their family and their kids, and then they go and train really hard and race and stuff. So some of them, they just have quite a balance, which is really important, I think, in high performance sport, is that you just have that balance. Otherwise, it's very hard to push yourself to the top and to your limit. So I think it's really interesting to see how different everybody goes about it and stuff, and seeing girls much older still going with passion, which is definitely the case. There's still some girls that are really good and have so much passion for the sport.
I mean, if peaking is mid to late 30s, you're going to be Olympic and world champion by the time you get there. Maike, you've qualified for the Olympics for 2021, whenever it's going to happen. You mentioned earlier that it's probably better for you from a training perspective because it gives you more time to get faster. Firstly, did you ever, growing up as a kid, think you would qualify for the Olympics? Maybe in hockey or athletics, but in rowing. And secondly, tell us about a bit about the emotion of qualifying for the Olympics.
I did not think I was going to go to the Olympics for any sport when I was little. I loved watching it. I really enjoyed watching the athletics. That was my favorite to watch, the athletics part. But I honestly, when people ask me, a lot of people ask me that question already, and I think it's bizarre. I think you have a lot of people in our field that have qualified, that have dreamt of the Olympics since they could remember. But for me, it's been completely different. For me, it was actually later on when I realized I was actually good at a sport, and then realized, okay, Olympics is actually on the radar. I can actually, put that as one of my goals because I maybe could make it. But I was definitely never dreaming of going to the Olympics ever for any sport from a young age. I always enjoyed sports and I like being active, but I never thought I could be that good at something to actually pursue it to go to the Olympics. So it's been very different for me. So it's actually exciting actually to accomplish something like that quite later on with something where you didn't actually have that goal from a younger age. And then, so what was your second question? I think I forgot.
Qualifying. I mean, it must have been.
So yeah, that was actually very incredible. So for me, I just remember this quite clear. So we walked up to get our medals and listen to our anthem, my anthem, and that was really, I think that was the most emotional part, standing there. I had my Namibian flag and I just received my medal, but I knew that now I was qualified and I was standing there and this flag was going up and my Namibian anthem was playing, and that was so emotional. There's even a photo of me crying, but in that moment, I was just thinking of, there were so many things that went through my mind. It was insane. My mind had so much stuff racing through there because I was thinking of all the obstacles, everything that wasn't going well, but I just kept going, and that was why I eventually ended up here. And I think that was quite emotional because there was a lot of setbacks, coaching wise, moving places, roads to Tux, not having a coach, then finding a coach, and also having the support from family and stuff, and also seeing your friends move on and do other things while you are committed to a sport. There's a lot of sacrifices that go into becoming, elite athlete and representing a country. And I think standing there in that moment was I just thought to myself, this was so worth it. This was so worth it. I don't care how hard all those days were, all those hard days and stuff, they've paid off. And I eventually stood there, and I think that's why I got quite emotional, because I just thought, and also I thought about all the people who've put so much energy, especially my family and my coach and my friends and stuff, put so much energy and believe into me, and that I was standing there. I was actually standing there for all those people as well, not just for myself. It was incredible.
I think if you think that was emotional, wait till you walk into the Olympic Stadium next year, and then it being worth it is going to be a whole new level.
New level.
Maike, you are still young. You got a long way before you peak. What are the dreams and aspirations in terms of your sport, and where do you want to get to?
Yeah, I think a lot of people are asking that, and I'm asking that myself as well. I think I actually don't know yet. I think the answers will come eventually to me as I go to Tokyo and as I go through that process and then present for Namibia and race for Namibia and the time after and stuff. I think the answers will come to me then. I think the postponement now is also, it's been hard because it's all been pushed a year later. So you always think, oh, okay, another year. Okay, if I want to do the next cycle and this and that and that. And I'm a person I like to think about I want to achieve a lot of things in different fields, and it's hard. It's actually not nice being like this, because as much as people admire someone like that because you're so ambitious and you want to achieve a lot, it gets hard because now you're thinking, okay, by the age of 30, I want to at least do this. I want to do that and that and that. So for me, there's so many other things still that I think I want to do. But I think with rowing now, I think the answers will come. I think once I go to Tokyo, I think my mind will be a bit clearer if I continue and when I continue and stuff like that. Because I know with rowing, like you said, I'm not even close to my peaking age, and it is, a lot of people always say, oh no, you have so many years still, you can, you know, things can still like change and stuff. So we'll see how things go, but I definitely don't have an answer yet, and I think it will come to me. But I also really hope, with me doing this sport and representing Namibia and going to the games, I think one big thing I really want to take from this and also give back to Namibia is really try, you know, develop the sport, because we've slowly started. We have now a second club developing in Namibia at the coast, luckily, because now the new thing of rowing, I think where the next few years will be going, is coastal rowing, because a lot of countries don't have the facilities to actually do the rowing that we do, and for Namibia it would be actually ideal to do coastal rowing because we have a nice lagoon on the beach and stuff like that. So I think for me, I really hope that it's not just going to be me presenting Namibia, but I hope by me doing that I can actually, you know, give back a little piece, and also, you know, let kids experience what it feels like to sit in a rowing boat, because we're already starting it, but I think it needs a bit more of a drive and, you know, money and stuff. But I think that's one of my big goals, except for going to the Olympics, is just to leave behind something for people to remember me by, and also to encourage people to try the sport, and hopefully the sport will live on in Namibia.
I mean, just in closing, Maike, I think, not being a professional sportsman myself, the one thing I've learned over the last 3 months of doing the Sport SA Daily Diary is a lot of the top professional sportsmen put a lot of pressure on themselves early on in their career, and they didn't achieve the results they believe they could have until later in their career because they'd let that pressure go. I think you are, you know, a perfect example of someone who can get to the top of the game, but just don't put the pressure on yourself that I have to achieve it now, because it will come with time.
Yeah, I agree. You're totally right, because I don't know, I think it takes so many aspects and factors to get yourself to that peak performance and be the best you can be. And it takes years. That's the thing. It takes so long, and to put that pressure on yourself early on, and you know, lose faith and think that that's it for you and move on. It's a dangerous thing, a dangerous trap to be falling in. And I think you're right. A lot of elite athletes, they learn how to deal with that, and to think, okay, no, I'd give it some time, work, and you know, eventually you'll get there. But it's difficult because, you know, the pressure is on, and especially when you are a person who, you know, you the hardest on yourself. For me, that's definitely me. I'm always the hardest on myself. It's not even my coach or anyone around me. It's just always me wanting to be better. So I think it's definitely difficult as a person to let go a little bit of that and know that eventually things will happen the way they happen, and you work for it and it will happen. But you're right. No, the pressure thing is definitely real.
And I suppose it's easier said than done to try and release that pressure, but it is something you should certainly look at. Maike, much like 2010, when all the African countries other than Ghana got knocked out of the FIFA World Cup, the entire African continent rallied around Ghana. No doubt the entire African continent will rally around African participants in the Olympics. So it's not only Namibia that you will be rowing for in Olympics next year, it will be the African continent, because we'll all be behind you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Good luck with the Olympics. We'll certainly be following you closely. And hopefully we can chat again soon after your Olympic dream.
Thank you so much, Adam. Thank you, guys, for listening to my story. And I'm really excited to, you know, represent the African continent at a world stage competition. I'm very excited, and I look forward to speaking to you guys soon again. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye. Don't miss tomorrow's episode of Sport SA Daily Diary, where we'll be chatting to an Egyptian swimmer heading to the 2021 Olympics.